I'm Semil Shah, and we're back here at Khosla Ventures with Keith Rabois. Keith, always great to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
You know, I think this series is sort of catching on, and people love to hear your insights on things. The first one, I think, going back a couple of sessions that we did, people are curious now. What's Keith's version or view on Bitcoin? V2. Now, I think since we talked in December, there's been a couple ups and downs. The price has been volatile. Some might say in the venture space it's cooled off a little bit, right? There were a lot of companies. How has your thinking changed on Bitcoin, or has it?
Well, let's start on first principles. So the first thing about redesigning a payments product infrastructure is it's quite easy to do. I can think of a billion things wrong with payments in the world, in the United States, with financial services, with banks. The hard part about redesigning a payments product is to also at the same time make it secure and compliant with US law. So a design principle, it's very easy to start, innovate, to make it compliant at the same time and retain that value proposition is the challenge. And what I still haven't yet seen is something that's live, vibrant, and that would work in the United States in a way that's secure, convenient, innovative. Insofar as that happens, I'd be particularly excited. In fact, probably going to be on the precipice of making a Bitcoin-oriented investment for the first time.
Awesome.
So there's possibilities there, but I think this is one of the few ones that's really rethought the general infrastructure and figured out what's broken, what's not, what needs to happen to empower innovation. Now, outside the United States, as we talked about initially, there are a lot of things that are different outside the United States. So I have no doubt that Bitcoin, quad Bitcoin, can be very successful outside the United States. The regulatory regime is different, the landscape is different, the expectations of different people in the ecosystem are different.
I think, to be fair, I was going back and looking at that video. There were two caveats you made in there. One was kind of it could, in different places, sub-Saharan Africa, parts of Eastern Europe, where the rule of law is weak, this could come up and actually force the United States either with a hard hand or soft hand to change. And also, and we'll get to this later, the protocol side of it. I also think that, would love to get your opinion, that it's hard for people to send Bitcoin right now. Right, so there's a small number of people that have it and they know how to transact with it, but for the average consumer, it may be even hard to use PayPal, right? Or they may not have a PayPal account. So how are you going to send these long string of keys to other people?
Exactly. So you definitely have to simplify the user experience, but the hard part is to do that in a way that is both secure and compliant with Know Your Customer regulations. And right now, what I'm still trying to discern is how much of Bitcoin usage is regulatory arbitrage, i.e. there's an opportunity to do things because the regulations, the compliance with the regulations isn't there, which would cause the pain, the friction, the costs. So insofar as you import those back on, because eventually those costs are going to get re-imported back on in the United States, how much of a value proposition still distills. And that's what we're looking for, is if you add all the things you're required to do legally and add all the security elements, is there a unique value proposition that's been created on top of the protocol?
Okay. And now, I went to a talk a while ago where I heard some guy who'd been at Visa for a long time was saying, look, it's payments, stored value, and the protocol. And I was curious, going back to the one we did in December, how have you been looking at companies? I know we've looked at a lot of the similar companies that are building on the protocol. Do you see that as an investment opportunity separate of what happens with Bitcoin price?
Oh, sure, absolutely. The protocol itself is an interesting breakthrough that may manifest itself completely in verticals outside of financial services. And we would absolutely be interested as investors. I'd be interested in investors and people take advantage of those breakthrough ideas and figure out how to power new things, the ledger, et cetera, proof of work. All of those concepts are fundamentally interesting, like sort of as a CS kind of computer science breakthrough. Then it's a question of where to deploy those, which is the job of an entrepreneur to figure out what does this new sort of technology and thinking and math allow me to do that's been impossible or difficult or painful or expensive. And then when they walked in the door here, explain that to us, and we would embrace that in a heartbeat if it was true.
And then do you have any predictions or things that you think might happen next 6 to 12 months? So one of my gut predictions is that I think one of the big New York banks is going to take a position on one of the high-profile exchanges, partly because either they'll invest it. If it goes away, it goes away. If they hit it early, then they're sort of insulated. What do you think is going to happen, let's say in the world of tech and entrepreneurship? Think there are going to be more companies? Do you think the prices are going to go down? Just your thoughts as an investor.
I think there's another wave of innovation. And I think entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial attention, especially at the bottom up, recent grads, grad students, is very committed to this sector. And so I think you'll see a generation, whether it's 1 year to 3 years of innovation. And that's, very important, because without that level of inspiration and innovation, it's hard to do new things. Like, for example, we invest in alternative energy, and we'd like to continue to invest in alternative energy, but a lot of entrepreneurs right out of school are not creating alternative energy companies, which means we can't fund them. So right now, though, a lot of attention and energy of the most talented people is being focused on Bitcoin and what can be enabled.
And you're seeing that energy coming through out of undergrad.
Yes.
In pitch meetings. What do you think is fueling that? I mean, you must have been in tons of these meetings. What is it that is attracting them to this?
Well, the concept is sound. I mean, the general concept of programmable money, which has never been possible before, is a fundamentally sound, arguably brilliant idea. Secondly, the financial services world is broken. Amex still runs on COBOL. I actually am old enough that I learned to program in Fortran. I actually skipped the COBOL generation, but like most financial services is still that broken. So the ability to innovate in that sector, and it's still 20% or so of the US economy, is pretty important. So if you were to cut through the clutter, break through with a technology, innovation, consumer value proposition, it would clearly be an important, successful business. It's just very difficult because of the powers of incumbency protected by regulation, the fears of security, which are valid and are at some degree of tension with convenience and ease of use. All of those become interesting challenges. So you need a very kind of sort of world-class entrepreneur to navigate all those trade-offs. This is not a straight shot business, which is why most of these financial services innovations are rarely successful, is only a world-class team can pull them off.